interesting segment on Home Truth Nigeria. Today, I want to talk on signs your Nigerian guy has a family back home. Now, if there's one thing most Western ladies dread of, when dating or getting married to a Nigerian, is the fear that they are getting married to somebody who is already secretly married. I mean, the thought of thinking, what if this person you're about getting married to, or this person you're with, has a family back home? That's why today I want to talk about some clues or signs that you should not disregard if you're dating or married to a Nigerian, because it could potentially lead you to truth you want. Now, before I go any further, I want to say this. If you are involved in a Nigerian man, either you're dating him or you met him or you're married to him, and he's in his late 30s, approaching to his late 30s and early 40s, and he doesn't have a wife or a child, I would be very, very, very worried. I'm not saying that every Nigerian on this age bracket has a wife or a child, but it is totally not normal. So if you meet a Nigerian man within this profile, please be very cautious before you dive deeper in the relationship. Do your finding. Now, having said this, let us join straight. What is the clue or sign number one to know that he might have a family back home? The first one is he doesn't speak much about himself. Now, Nigerians are very proud people, and sometimes we can be very boisterous, especially when it comes to talking about ourselves, what we've achieved. A lot of you who have met or dealt with Nigerians, you discover that we are very eager to make you feel impressed, tell you what we've done, what we're doing, and what we plan to do. This is something that is very, very typical in Nigerians. Nigerians are very goal driven and also competitive. So, if for whatever reason you meet a Nigerian man who doesn't like talking about himself, I would be very, very concerned, especially when you throw questions to him and he gives you a kind of disposition like, why are you asking me? I'll be very concerned. Now, the problem I have with a lot of Western ladies is that a lot of you make excuses for them. Oh, I know this. I'm in a relationship with this Nigerian guy, but he doesn't like talking about himself. Or it's okay. Maybe the mother dropped him on his head when he was little, so he's suffering from PTSD. Blah blah blah. And then you make all sort of excuses for this guy, and along the line, you get to discover that okay, this guy had been fine all along. Now, the reason why he doesn't like speaking about himself is because he knows if he tells you certain things, he can be consistent with the things he's telling you, most especially when it has to do with lies. I will be very careful on this if I basically were you. So please, for whatever reason, do not treat this with kids' glove. If he doesn't speak about himself, be very concerned. Second point I want you to know is that he doesn't speak about his family. I've always said in my video, Africans, Nigerians, we are family oriented. We are family minded people. That is to say, family is everything to us. So, if for whatever reason you are serious with a Nigerian man who doesn't like to speak about himself, about his family, he avoids anything about family, he doesn't want to make you know anything about your family, I would be very, very worried if I were you, like super duper worried. Now, a lot of you would make excuses that, okay, yeah, it's normal not to speak about family because, I mean, it happens to a lot of you in the Western world, but it's not normal for us not to speak about the family. So, I once spoke to a girl I asked her about the guy, and she was like, "Oh, the guy I'm with, it doesn't have a good relationship with his parents, so they don't keep contact." And I was like, "Really, a Nigerian man?" So a lot of things call for questioning. Now, I'm not saying these things they don't happen; they do happen, but it is not the norm. Now, one of the reasons some of these men don't like speaking about their family is because they don't want you to have an avenue, to contact them. And if I were you, I would start asking questions ranging from his grandfather, his father, his uncles, aunties, mother, father, sisters, brothers, niece, nephew, cousins. I would ask questions, ask questions, keep him uncomfortable, keep him talking. If he refuses to talk, then there is a problem. Another important point you need to know is this: he blocks you from contacting his family and friend. Now, a lady once told me that she's been in a relationship with a Nigerian man for 3 years, but she has no contact with his family or friends. Never been introduced, never spoken to any of them, has never had the opportunity to at least maybe hang out with them. And she asked me if it was a thing of concern. I said, oh, yes, it is a thing of concern. So if you're with a Nigerian man, especially a Nigerian man who is actively communicating with his friends and family, he's actively communicating with them. There's a strong communication between him, his friends, and his family. And for whatever reason, he hasn't made effort, to introduce you to them, then it is totally weird. Now, sometimes one of the reasons he doesn't want to introduce you to them or he blocks you is simply to protect himself, not protecting you, to protect himself. Now, here's the thing: if he is known to be somebody who is married with family back home, he would kind of like, because he doesn't want you to know, he would not let you have access to his family and friends, especially when his friends and family don't know that he's married overseas or is romantically involved with another lady, because it's kind of like, okay, double standard, like I mean, how is he going to introduce you to them, especially when they know he's married and he has a family back home? So is he going to introduce you as what to them? So he tries to block you and doesn't give you that room for whatever reason to create any form of contact with friends and family. Another point is he doesn't make calls or he disappears when making calls. Now, if you're dating a Nigerian man who is not comfortable to pick or make calls in your presence. And whenever a call comes through on his phone, he's always excusing himself, to go answer the call somewhere. Or maybe you're with a Nigerian man who is always speaking in his native language with on every call. Now, keeping in mind that most Nigerians can communicate with English or pidgin English, then I would be a little bit skeptical to think like, okay, perhaps something is wrong somewhere. Most especially when he speaks at every call with the Nigerian language, knowing full well you don't understand the language. I would be very, very, very concerned, because it is not the norm. One trick or some tricks they also play is those of them who are married back home in Nigeria, they could tell their partner when to call. They could, if they are at work, especially when you're not in the presence, they could like tell the partner to call. Or when they're on break or when they're close from work and they're heading home, they could speak with the partner heading home. They could also call in the house, even make video call when you are not at home, when he knows that you are not at home. So these are some tricks they basically play. He disappears, uh, uh, does everything possible to see that you, as an individual, you're not there when he's speaking to this lady. Now, the truth of the matter is that a real Nigerian man, when his friends call or the family, brother, sister, whatever the case is, and you are there, he could introduce you to them to say, hey, my wife is here. Just say hello to my wife, or my wife sends her greeting, or my fiance sends her greeting. It's very polite, most especially even if he has to answer the call in another language. Probably his mother tongue is Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, whatever language it is. Probably he chooses to answer this call in his mother tongue. It's courteous for him to tell you at least a summary of what they've spoken at the end of the conversation. Like say, oh, listen, we were talking about this, because he understands full well that you don't understand the language. But if all of this is happening, it doesn't let you know what they say. He doesn't explain to you what they're talking about. I would tell you to take measures. One measure you could do is try recording his conversation and then take that recording to a Nigerian who speaks the same language and have him translate it. Maybe you never know. Something could come out of it. Now, another point is this: he's a frequent traveler. Now, if you're with a Nigerian man, you're married to him, you're dating a Nigerian man who is a frequent traveler. Now, his traveling does not coincide with his work. He's not going on official assignment. He's not traveling because there is something urgent. But I'm talking about a frequent traveler, somebody who is like traveling like 2 or 3 times each year to Nigeria. And if you notice, the period is traveling is always traveling within festive period like Easter, Christmas, because these are two huge holidays where Nigerians love going back home with their family. It's a period where you bring your family to show your kinsmen, your family, and he's always going for these holidays without you alone. I would be very worried. Now, one thing you need to understand is this. I'm not saying that because of his frequent travels, is having a second family. No, he could be running a project. He could be contesting for some election, so his presence might be needed. But nonetheless, I would advise you to please, for whatever reason, pack your bag and join that trip. Yes, pack your bag one day and tell him, you know what, I want to join you on this one. I want to follow you. Let's travel. Now, if he tells you whatever thing they're doing is just for men, women are not supposed to be there, tell him all fine and good. You would stay in whatever place they keep the women in this village to stay. You would stay there. Now, it's very important. Don't allow this negative stereotype of Nigeria is bad. When you go to Nigeria, they will kidnap you, they will shoot you. Don't allow it stop you from going to meet your husband people, because there are a lot of you who have been with Nigerian men for years. And I mean years, you've not even bothered to go home to see his country. You don't know where he's from, you don't have contact with his siblings, and you think he wouldn't get a second family back home. Of course, he would get a second family back home. Of course, he would. So that is one mistake a lot of you make, because he would definitely get a second family, especially when you are like nobody knows you in his family. You're a stranger. Even the family would tell him, this lady you're married to that has no contact with anybody in our family, I think you should come down here to start a family. Start a family that we can be seen and can take care of. And this totally happens. Now, one thing you need to understand is that sometimes most of those trips he makes, they are breeding breeding trips. It's a period where he goes there to make babies with his second wife. You will be surprised within the space of 8 years he's had 2 3 kids. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, like, okay, when did he get married? I've always said it that in Africa, you don't need to be present in a lot of tradition to get married. Your brother can stand in for you on your wedding day in Africa, in Nigeria. Even if you don't have a brother, your picture, they could use your picture to stand in for the bride. The most important thing is that the family of the man goes to pay the bridal price. Once the bridal price is paid, the marriage is done. It is left for the man to find a convenient time to travel and start making babies with the partner. The last part is the social media secrecy. Now, if you're dating a Nigerian man who is very active on something like Facebook, is an active user, and there is nothing indicating of your relationship, then I'll be very worried. Now, I quote, if he is a very active user. Now, even sometimes when you go to like confront him, like, oh, what about this and that? You're on Facebook constantly. There's nothing about our relationship or about wedding, and it gives you all 1 million reasons why I would still be completely concerned. A lady once told me she got married to a Nigerian man, and the man is a very frequent user on Facebook, but the man didn't post anything about it on his Facebook. Like, he's frequently on Facebook. It's a different thing if your partner is not a frequent user, doesn't use Facebook. Then of course you could cut him slack on that, and he could compensate for this by probably his closest friends, his immediate family. Then okay, this is fine. But I'm talking about a situation whereby you don't know his family, you don't know his friends, you don't speak with them, and you don't even know what is happening in his Facebook. Now, some of you are not even friends on Facebook. Some of them even tell you they don't have Facebook. Meanwhile, they do, but they are using a different traditional name that you don't know. I know somebody who went by the name, a very strong Yoruba name, traveled to Canada and was answering James, and the wife would check James for whatever, doesn't see anything about him on Facebook. But they do this on Facebook with his traditional name. And the day the wife found out, there was nothing suggestive that he is with her. He's always posting his pictures alone and all of this on Facebook. So it is very, very, very important. Now, guys, the truth of the matter is that on this topic, there are 1,000 things to say to you that are signs why a lot of Nigerian men basically uh, would have a partner back home. But for the sake of time, I would stop here. Now, in conclusion, please, I would always say before you go into anything serious, before you get married, it's important to make these findings. Make this finding. I told you, once you meet a man who is approaching his late 30s, early 40s, and he tells you he's not married, he doesn't have a child, do your investigation. Even if he tells you, like, oh, I don't need a child, do your investigation. The reason is you may invest your time, your money, resources, everything building with a man for years, and one day he just wakes up and tells you he's done. And the moment he tells you he's done, the next thing you're seeing him come with a family with kids. They're all coming into your country, and you'll be wondering how did this happen? And so the earlier you make your findings, the better for you. Because as I say, stitching time does what? You know the rest. So, guys, with this, I would like to say a very big thank you for watching my video. Again, if you want to reach me, if you've got questions, you can write me on home truth 86 at gmail.com, just like you can see on your screen. Thank you very much for your time. Please like, share, subscribe, and if you want to comment, comment respectfully. Home Truth Nigeria. Peace out.